We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 95 of Vikings Uncensored, the new and improved Vikings Uncensored. As you can probably see by the background and a few other things here, we have made the jump from Zoom to StreamYard for our shows, opening up a whole bunch of more possibilities as far as a little bit of editing. Baby steps, yep. A little more ability to bring on guests and things like that when we have live shows. So we're going to give it a whirl. So there might be a few glitches here and there, but bear with us as we start on this. So got a few things to talk about tonight. A little bit of news stuff. And then, of course, we'll do a deep dive into the defensive coordinator search. Do a little talk about the conference championship games this week, and we'll probably throw out Brunswick's best at the end, as we normally do. So with that, why don't we get started here? First off, we want to wish a very happy birthday this week to the legendary Carl Eller. Number 81 turns 81 this week. So happy birthday to Mr. Eller, Viking legend, many more to come. Now on to not a whole lot of NFL-wide news. The coaching searches are still kind of running in circles and things like that. So, but we do have a little bit of Vikings news to talk about. This week, Dalvin Cook added to the NFC Pro Bowl roster after, of course, Tony Pollard suffered a injury in the divisional round and will be out for the foreseeable future. So Dalvin Cook added as a running back for the NFC. Justin Jefferson on Wednesday was named the Pro Football Writers Association NFL Offensive Player of the Year, and also was designated in as a finalist for the NFL MVP award. Okay, Jefferson's going up against the likes of Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes. It's 99% of the time a quarterback that wins that, so I don't see Jefferson winning it, but at least he's a finalist. He is also up as a finalist for the Associated Press's Offensive Player of the Year.
That award, I do look for him to win.
I think he stands a very good chance of winning that one. I agree with that. I would be shocked if he wins the MVP. He definitely should get consideration for it. But
right, that'd be awesome. That'd be badass. It'd be a change for once.
Yeah, I mean, it's 99% of the time it's always quarterbacks who win it. I mean, the last non-quarterback, there might have been a defensive player to win it, but Adrian Peterson won it back after his 2,000-yard season.
Yep, that was something. Probably the last time a non-quarterback has won the award was when Peterson won it, I believe.
I think you're right on that. But then for Coach of the Year, Kevin O'Connell got snubbed. The Coach of the Year finalists are Brian Daboll, Sean McDermott, Doug Peterson, Kyle Shanahan, and Nick Sirianni. The whole Vikings are frauds thing the entire season, I think.
Oh, and he inherited a good roster.
Yeah. He took a roster that was under 500 last year and got 13 wins out of it, but he's not in contention for Coach of the Year, it's bullshit. And O'Connell deserved to be at least a finalist for that.
This some fuel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to.
If I was O'Connell.
Yeah, I think
obviously, but if I was O'Connell, I'd be seething right now.
I think O'Connell's more about the team, but yeah, I mean, there's always inherent ego in there, and I would be a little bit upset too if I was him. But it is what it is, I guess. So
yeah.
So with that, we will, of course, after last week, when Ed Donatel was relieved of his duties as defensive coordinator, so far we have 4 confirmed candidates for the defensive coordinator job. We have actually interviewed 3 of. What's that?
I like 3 of these, 3 of the 4 of these guys. I mean, Benton, I think we're just going to get Dino 2.0. But anyways.
So, of course, the 4 candidates who have been announced so far are Ryan Nielsen, Brian Flores, Sean Desai, and Mike Pettin. Now, Nielsen interviewed on Monday, Pettin on Wednesday, Desai on Tuesday, and Brian Flores will have. He was supposed to interview on Thursday, so he should have completed his interview by the time we start this. So we'll kind of roll into a little bit of a background on these guys. So we will start out with the first interview we had was one Ryan Nielsen. Nielsen is currently the co-defensive coordinator and defensive line coach in New Orleans. Has been there since 2017 as a defensive line coach. Coached at the collegiate level at several different colleges for 15 years prior to that. Now, the interesting thing about Nielsen is in New Orleans, they run more of a 4-3 base and a lot of 4-2-5s type stuff.
Okay.
And O'Connell had made mention that he wants to stay in with the 3-4 style of defense. So I don't know if this is a kind of pick a guy's brain to get a few more options as far as.
That's exactly what I was going to say before you said it. Pick his brain.
Yeah. But I guess we'll see on that one. Then on Tuesday, we brought in Sean Desai, who, interestingly enough, was a finalist for this job last year before Donatel got the job. Now, Desai has experience in the Fangio 3-4 scheme.
Right.
Then has some tweaks, of course, being there in Seattle this year with the Seahawks, Pete Carroll's defenses and stuff like that added to it. Desai was with the Bears from 2013 to 2021 as a defensive quality control coach, a safeties coach, and in 2021, defensive coordinator. Now, the interesting thing with Desai is he survived 3 different regimes in Chicago. He was there first under Mark Trestman. Then when John Fox got the defensive coordinator job, they kept him on board. And then, of course, stayed with Fangio when he was the head coach there. So that kind of says something about the guy. I think that, he was thought highly enough of that 3 different head coaches kept him on. Kind of like what we did with Keenan McCardell this year.
Yeah, absolutely. His time is McCardell's time is coming. I mean, it will be soon enough. He'll be somewhere calling plays.
Mm-hmm. Now with Desai, personally, I think right now he might be the front runner for this job.
Good. I like the guy.
It would seem a little weird to me that the guy would be a finalist for the job last year. You not give it to him. You bring him back again this year and then not give it to him again.
Yeah, that would. Yeah.
I mean,
that kind of says something off,
Yeah. So right now, I think he's probably the front runner. We'll see how things play out here in the next week or so. But then, of course, on Wednesday, we had current Vikings assistant head coach Mike Pettine interview for the coordinator position. Now, Pettine's been around a long time.
He has.
Started off as a Ravens assistant in 2002. He was a defensive assistant, defensive line coach, and an outside linebackers coach for the Ravens from 2002 to 2008. Then moved over
to be a part of the Ravens organization.
Yeah. Then moved over to the Jets as their defensive coordinator from 2009 to 2012. Was the Bills defensive coordinator in 2013. Head coach of the Cleveland Browns in 2014 and 2015. On to the Seattle Seahawks in 2017 as a defensive consultant. Then was the defensive coordinator for the Packers in 2018 through 2020. A Bears defensive assistant in 2021, and then moved over here in 2022 to be the assistant head coach and consultant to Kevin O'Connell.
He has had some success.
Yeah. And I mean, just some of the numbers here we're looking at on him. In his 10 years as a defensive coordinator, his defenses were top 15 in points 5 times, but were also 20th or worse 5 times. His rushing defense was top 15 4 times, but 22nd or worse 6 times. Passing defense, he was top 5 4 times, top 10 7 times, and never worse than 22nd.
Wow.
So it's kind of a boomer bust thing. It seems like with Pettine, he's either got a really good defense or he's got a pretty bad one.
It comes down to personnel, dude. Who do you have to work with as far as chess pieces on the field go?
Yeah.
I mean, that's with any coordinator. I mean, except for Dontel, of course.
Yeah. Now, myself personally, I really don't care to see Pettine get this job. I would have been okay with Pettine taking over for Donatell mid-season.
That's what should have happened to get a look at him anyways.
Yeah, but I don't really see him as being the future at this position.
It would take some air out of the balloon for sure, because you would feel like you're just recycling an old concept.
Yeah, and that's kind of what worries me. But
who knows?
I think they're doing their due diligence on this stuff, and I think some of this might just be, okay, you're already the assistant head coach. We're going to sit down. We're going to, talk this stuff over. We'll call it a defensive coordinator interview and see what you have to say, see what you have to think, things like that. But, he was supposedly part of this whole deal last year, so I don't really want to see him as getting the job, I guess.
Right. That's kind of the way I feel as well. Yes.
Yeah. And then the other confirmed candidate so far who will have interviewed already, he's supposed to interview on Thursday, is former Miami Dolphins head coach Brian Flores. Now, Flores coached for Bill Belichick in New England from 2008 to 2018.
I was going to say a long time.
Long time, various different positions. Now, of course, the Patriots do a whole bunch of weird shit and don't necessarily give
titles don't hold any water over there. They kind of just do a little bit of everything.
Not really, no. So he was a kind of a de facto defensive coordinator for a few years over there. Then when he, of course, joined the Miami Dolphins, he was a head coach there from 2019 through 2021. then after
a really bad Miami team, honestly.
Yep. And, the numbers were kind of up and down over there, but he definitely, I think, made an improvement in Miami with the defense. Then, of course, after the whole kerfuffle with what went on with Miami's ownership group and Flores and the lawsuit and all that other stuff.
That's what worries me about the potential of him coming here. Would he be bringing some baggage with him like that?
Yeah. But he did go to the Steelers last year and was a defensive consultant there, and assistant linebackers coach, kind of. But he was also coaching linebackers. Now, one thing with Flores that you're going to get, he runs a very aggressive defense. It is a 3-4 scheme, but it's more the Belichickian style than it is. It's different from what the Fangio scheme is that we tried to run this last year. But Flores is blitz.
People even say it's a Fangio-ish scheme because Dontel didn't call it like a Fangio-esque scheme.
No, he didn't. It was like I said, the pseudo prevent Donatel scheme, we'll call it. But Flores' blitz rate when he was running defenses is up closer to 40%, which is you're pushing into
that sweet zone I talked about.
Yep, you're pushing into that Wink Martindale type New York Giants level of blitzing and stuff on defense. It's very aggressive, which
right between 40 and 48 is perfect, man.
Yeah, which I'm all for an aggressive defense, especially after that passive BS we saw for the entire season this year. Now, the one thing with Flores is he probably would be a one-and-done type coordinator because he has eyes on being a head coach again.
Right.
He's actually interviewing with Arizona this week for their head coaching job, so that might take place even before he would have an opportunity to take a defensive coordinator job. But he's made no bones about the fact he wants to be a head coach again.
Of course.
Then a few other options, I guess, that are out there that have not been announced yet that could potentially be candidates or people that have ties to the whole thing. One is current defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, Giro Avero. Now he's getting a ton of head coaching interviews. He's interviewed twice now with both Indianapolis and Houston. Now he's another one that has made no secret about the fact that he wants to be a head coach. So that's another one that would probably be a one and done type,
right?
Kind of deal.
That's the NFL for you, though. If you have a successful staff, people are going to want those people on their staff or leaders of their team. So,
yeah. And now Avero, he's got a pretty decent resume here too, and he's got both experience in the 3-4 and the 4-3. So
yeah, that's what I like about this dude for sure.
He was the defensive quality control coach at Tampa Bay from 2007 to 2009. Then quality control coach over in San Francisco, offensive and defensive assistants at San Francisco from 11 to 15. And he overlapped.
Great, especially when it comes to coaching.
Yep, and he overlapped with Kwesi at that point in time, so there's a little bit of history there. He was defensive quality control coach for the Packers in 2016. Rams safeties coach, secondary coach, and pass game coordinator from 17 to 21. So he overlapped with Kevin O'Connell there. And then, of course, the defensive coordinator in Denver in 2022. And the defense was about the only good part of the Denver Broncos this year. They had a very good defense. This guy's kind of been my favorite from the get-go, but right now it's looking like a long shot with him getting all these head coaching interviews and things like that. So
a young, bright mind, that is for sure. Just his credentials say enough about him.
Absolutely. The next one that I think has some promise is former Badgers defensive coordinator Jim Leonard. Now, he played for quite a few years in the NFL. He was a safety for the New York Jets. Had a very good defense for the Badgers in the college ranks. The NFL has been trying to get him to come up to the pro level for several years. And now with the coaching change in Wisconsin, he no longer is at the coordinator position. So there is an opening there for him to come to the NFL. Whether he decides he wants to do that or not, I don't know. But there's another bright young mind there that I would definitely take a look at. Then there's a couple other ones. Just briefly mentioning on staff, Greg Minuski. We've talked about him in the past. He's got some head coaching experience, some DC experience. I don't really think of him as a viable candidate for this job. He was another one of those ones we talked about that could have been a interim had they gotten rid of Donatel during the season. But I don't want him as the option, so I'm not even going to dive.
I would rather not have somebody in-house taking over the DC position.
I would agree.
Right.
Yep. So that eliminates him. That eliminates Pettin to me. Pettin can still be the assistant head coach. That's fine.
A fresh face is always nice and always brings positive, vibes, in my opinion.
Yep. And then the other one, and some of these I got, our buddy Tyler Fornes put out a list here earlier in the week, and these are some of the guys that are off his list too, so hat tip to Tyler on this. But the other guy, Jonathan Cooley, Rams defensive backs coach. Now, Kevin O'Connell tried to bring him along last year when he first came to the Vikings, and the Rams blocked him.
Wow.
But now I believe he is available for, if it came down to getting interviews and things like that. So that's a possibility, I guess. We'll see. Right now we have the 4 candidates. Like I mentioned before, I would not be surprised at all to see Desai right now, I think, is the front runner.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Flores comes in on Thursday and blows everybody away, and he gets the gig. But
I'm surprised Raheem Morris isn't getting more consideration. But
yeah, he's had a couple of interviews, but I think more or less, a lot of that steam started when there was the question whether or not Sean McVay was going to stay with the Rams. And now that he's confirmed that he's coming back, I think Morris probably stays with the Rams as the DC.
Okay.
I'm not a huge Raheem Morris fan personally. He had a good defense for a couple of years, but he also has the likes of Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey and a whole bunch of very good defensive players over there. That
you can't really fault the guy for that, though.
No, but you start looking at some of the other places he's been. He runs a little more of that Tampa 2 style and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's not real high on my list. I guess we'll put it that way. But that's just my opinion.
Fair enough.
Anything else you want to hit on the DC stuff before we move on? Or
nope, I don't think so. I think that last bit about Raheem Morris is about all I had to say.
Okay. So with that, we're going to roll into another one of our classic beer commercials. So head yourself on over to the fridge, grab yourself a cold one, crack it open, check this out, and we'll be back in a minute.
He wouldn't be afraid to show his feminine side if he had one. His mother has a tattoo that reads, Son. At museums, he's allowed to touch the art. He is the most interesting man in the world.
I don't always drink beer, but when I do, I prefer Dos Equis. Stay thirsty, my friends.
Those are always great, man.
Oh, of course.
Those Dos Equis.
Yep. I don't always drink beer, but when I do, I prefer Dos Equis.
Classic, man.
All right. So with that, we are going to move on now to Conference Championship weekend in the NFL. 2 really big games here. Of course, last weekend we had some of the favorites, namely the Buffalo Bills, getting knocked out. As we kind of talked about last week, I kind of had a gut feeling that Cincy was going to come in there and take care of business, and they did. Of course, we had the whole Stephon Diggs blow up. I don't know what your thoughts were on that one, but
it was just a matter of time.
Yeah. Now, the on-field part of it, where when he's fiery on the sidelines and stuff like that, I don't mind that.
Right.
But then when he went in and he cleared out his shit and got out of the locker room before the coaches even got back there, that is the part I have the problem with.
Yep, that's some bullshit.
Yeah, dude,
that's where you start putting yourself above the game, and you're not.
Yep, dude, you're supposed to be a leader on this team. Act like it.
Keyword being team there, Rhino.
Yes, exactly. You can, after everybody clears out of the locker room, you can go outside. You can tip over garbage cans and throw shit and whatever all else if you want to, but set an example for the rest of your team.
Exactly.
Be there for that part of it. And I mean, we know how Diggs is because we dealt with that here too.
Emotion on his sleeve for sure.
Yep. And he came out and did some damage control stuff after the on like Tuesday, Wednesday about saying all I want to do is win, and get people want to see emotion, but then when you show emotion, they get pissy about it and all this other stuff. And like
you can still be emotional, but do it in a positive way.
Yep. That's the thing.
Make it to where it makes your team better.
Mm-hmm.
Where fingers don't get pointed at you.
Right. But Diggs is going to Diggs, and that's kind of the way it is, I guess.
And he's not the only player that's been like that. I mean, there's other players that are the same way. Fuck, Randy Moss walked out against the Redskins years back.
Yeah,
when that
was before halftime or whatever it was. Yeah, but
no, that was right before the end of the game. He walked
out. Yeah, that's the end of the game. That's right. But anyway, we'll roll on to the two conference championship games here. We'll start off with the Cincinnati Bengals heading into Arrowhead Stadium to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, this game got a whole lot more interesting about midway through the first quarter of the Chiefs and Jacksonville game when Patrick Mahomes went down with a high ankle sprain.
Now, I've had a high ankle sprain. That shit fucking hurts, dude.
Oh, I know.
That shit fucking hurts. Ask Mac Jones. Crying in the back, getting walked out.
But now Mahomes actually came back and played, which I didn't think was a good idea at the time. I think they should have left Henny in there unless they absolutely needed Mahomes to come back. But
it's playoffs, man.
It is, but I think it's going to be a different story this week.
You're right.
I mean, as it sits, the Bengals
He's
have beaten
hurt more now than what he was when it first happened, honestly.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, they had a press conference today. He came out there without a walking boot on and stuff like that. And, of course, the media's slow motion watching him walk out there to see if they can find any kind of a discernible limp or any of this other stuff.
Of course.
Got to drama it up and everything else. But when it gets down to game time, I'm sure they're going to shoot him up with some sort of painkillers or whatever. Well, not steroids, I believe, but that's illegal, Brunswick. But it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, Cincinnati's defense is legit. They bothered the hell out of the Bills last week.
That whole team is getting hot right when it needs to get hot.
Yeah, so. And
they turned it up to 11 when they hit the playoffs, man.
Mm-hmm. And Joe Burrow has never lost to the Chiefs in the 3 times they played.
That's saying something right there, man.
And he's never lost an Arrowhead. Of course, he's played I think 2 of those 3 games. It maybe all 3 of them at Arrowhead. So that home field advantage for the Chiefs, plus the fact that
I love me some fucking Joe Burrow, dude.
Oh, I do too.
I wish we had him here in Minnesota.
Oh, I would give up anything we have on this team to get Joe Burrow on a long-term contract.
Oh man, it's just.
I would trade Justin Jefferson to get Joe Burrow on here on a long-term.
That's a fucking spicy hot take right there. Wow, I don't know if I'd go that far.
I would, because you can find you can find other very good wide receivers, but finding a quarterback that has the ability, the swagger, the stuff like that.
There are quarterbacks that make their receivers who they are, and that's very true.
But,
and vice versa.
Right.
But anyways, after our man gushing over Joe Burrow.
Right. I guess myself, I think Cincinnati goes in and takes care of business. I think Cincinnati moves on.
I do too. I think Cincinnati goes back to the Super Bowl.
Now, if the Chiefs had a healthy Mahomes going, I think it makes it a little bit different story. But I a lot of Mahomes' game is moving around and keeping plays alive and stuff like that. And in that second half, especially against the Jaguars, he couldn't do that. You could see him out there. I mean, he was hobbling. He was doing something. I mean, all the credit.
His game is finding his spots and getting to his spots and making his throws.
Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, I expect Mahomes to play as well as he can with a high ankle sprain a week removed. But I think in the end, the Bengals are going to pull this out. All right, so we both figure that the Bengals are taking care of business here on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go Bengals for sure.
All right. Okay, then we'll move over to the NFC Championship game where the San Francisco 49ers head to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles.
I fucking hate the Eagles. I hate the Cowboys. God damn it. San Francisco go in there and take care of business, and I want to see you guys. Didn't San Francisco play the Bengals in the Super Bowl, and Steve Young and Jerry Rice
they've done it.
Lit them up.
Yeah. They played the Bengals twice in the Super Bowl, and they've won both times.
I'm smart.
I'm smart. SMRT smart.
Yeah, so we'd have another showdown between the Bengals and the Niners in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
it makes me feel
I think San Francisco takes care of business here too. The Eagles have shown a few chinks in their armor over the last few weeks. Now, they looked pretty good against the Giants last week, but San Francisco's defense is no joke. We've said that. We said that all the way back into the to the preseason that San Francisco's defense was going to be the reason why they got to where they're at.
George fucking Kittle, Rhino.
Yeah.
George Kittle. He is the heart and soul of that offense.
And then you throw in Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and Christian McCaffrey. Their offensive line is very good.
I think Kittle's probably Purdy's favorite target, in my opinion.
Yeah. Got to be pretty close anyway.
He has been lighting it up since Purdy started playing that quarterback. Mm-hmm. So without Kittle, there's no championship game, I don't believe, for San Francisco.
No, and I mean we got to give Brock Purdy credit. I mean we've talked about when is the rookie going to hit the wall.
You got to give Kyle Shanahan credit.
Yeah,
he
absolutely.
Is playing Purdy perfectly.
And I think this year with San Francisco is more of a credit to Kyle Shanahan. I mean, because you're down to your third string quarterback and you've been winning with all three. I mean, your high draft pick quarterback goes out after week 2 or whatever it was, week 3.
Most teams put in this situation wouldn't even be in the playoffs.
No, they'd have finished 6-11 or whatever the heck it would have been. But,
exactly. Yeah, whatever it would be, they wouldn't be in the playoffs. That's for sure. So that's saying enough about Kyle Shanahan and how he's coaching this team up.
Absolutely. So, I mean, and all the credit in the world to Nick Sirianni over in Philly too. He's done a hell of a job this year with what he's got.
Not a big fan.
But,
Not a big fan. He's a fucking dick.
Well, I mean,
Frog bastard. He's another Sean Payton.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that. I probably dislike the Eagles fans more than I dislike the Eagles.
I hate Gang Green altogether. Granted, you know what? I got to give those guys props when we went on the show earlier this year, and they knew what they knew what they were talking about, man. They seen it coming. So
yeah, but no, I think San Francisco takes care of business here too, and we have a Super Bowl rematch with the Bengals and the 49ers in a couple of weeks.
I can't stand the Eagles, man. I couldn't stand the Eagles back when they had McNabb. I hated it. So,
yeah, I've never been a huge
Eagles and Cowboys and Packers, man. Those three in any order, I hate them all equally.
And
a little bit more the Packers, though, of course, but
throw the Saints in there too after 2009. But
yeah, that's a good way. After 2009, yeah.
So, anything else you want to hit on the
perfect
these games? All right. So, with that, we have once again reached the best segment of the show as we look this week at the players to wear number 95 in this week's edition of Brunswick's Best. So why don't you roll that beautiful bean footage, Lance, and tell us who you got on your list this week.
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
Well, I got two main dudes here. So this week I got Fernando Smith and start with Fernando. So Fernando was drafted in the second round of 1994 NFL draft with the 55th overall by the Minnesota Vikings. Fernando wore the number for the team from 1994 until 1997. Smith had one pretty good season for the Vikings, putting up 9.5 sacks in 1996. That was one of the two seasons that he was the starter at left defensive end for the Vikings. After his 4 seasons with Minnesota, he bounced around the league a little bit, making stops in Jacksonville, Baltimore, and St. Louis before making his way out of the league. During his time in Minnesota, he appeared in 48 games, starting 28 of those, and he was able to force 5 fumbles and accumulate 16 sacks. Fernando Smith, you made the list. Coming up next, we got Kenechi Udeze. Now, I liked Udeze. I had high hopes for this. Kind of a sad story, but got a little bit of redemption here at the end, and we'll get into that. So, with that being said, Udeze was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings in the first round, 20th overall pick of the 2004 NFL Draft. During his rookie season with the Vikings, he started 15 games and recorded 36 tackles, 5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 1 pass deflected. As a second-year pro, Udeze was injured in the Vikings' 3rd game of the season with cartilage damage in his left knee, which kept him out the rest of the year. Udeze finished the season with 3 games started, 5 tackles, and 1 sack. In 2006, he was once again the starter at left defensive end, playing 16 games, starting 15 of those, and recording 29 tackles and no sacks. The following year, he again played in all 16 games with 15 starts, had 47 tackles, and 5 sacks. Now, on February 11th, 2008, it was announced that Udeze was diagnosed by doctors with a form of leukemia. The Vikings placed Udeze on the non-football injury-related list and eventually injured reserve in July of 2008, ending his season. Udeze returned to the Metrodome as an honorary captain for a game against the Green Bay Packers on November 9th of 2008, where he said he would return to playing football. You know what? I'll be back next year, Udeze told the Pioneer Press. Udeze was able to get back into a good enough shape and condition to return to the Vikings for the 2009 preseason training camp, reaching the physical form he was in before his illness. He took 26 snaps during the Vikings minicamp, but struggled with peripheral neuropathy in his feet as a result of his chemotherapy. The chemotherapy-induced neuropathy caused numbness that kept him from being able to plant firmly and complete and create a burst up the field after the snap. So finding himself unable to move at the level he was accustomed to, Udeze decided to retire, which he announced on July 29th, 2009. Knechtje spent all 4 years of his playing career with the Minnesota Vikings. He appeared in 51 total games, starting 47 of those. In that time, he was able to force 2 fumbles and record 11 sacks. After retiring from playing, Udeze really never left the game. Udeze went right back to work and got into coaching and has worked his way up to the NFL level, where he now holds the assistant defensive line coach position for the Tennessee Titans. Knechtje, you made the list.
Yeah, there was. I had a lot, like you mentioned earlier. I had big hopes for that guy, and I think he would have been a very good player had he not had the issues that he came upon. So
right, it was. It's unfortunate because we go from getting Udeze, and that what happened, and then we go and we draft Erasmus James, who didn't really pan out either. So I mean, it's kind of rough there at the defensive end position until we got a hold of Jared Allen. So, anyways, I got a couple brief mentions here that kind of deserve an honorary mention of some sort. So, Ifeadi Odenigbo started 15 games here in his career, and Ifeadi Odenigbo started 15 games, had 10.5 sacks in his 2 seasons with the team, 1 forced fumble, and 1 return for a touchdown, and also forced a safety. Ifeadi, you get an honorary mention. Also, Mr. Khyiris Tonga. He has been a great addition from the Bears, and I believe could be a great depth / rotational guy in this team on this team for quite some time. So, Tonga, you get a mention as well. And with that, that was this week's Brunswick's Best.
all right, and with that, that's really all we've got for this week. Again, want to thank everybody for joining us in the live chats, following us along on the YouTube channel. If you have not done so yet, please hit that subscribe button down below. It helps us out a ton, helps us build a brand, get bigger and better so we can do more live shows. We can bring in more guests. We can do all this kind of stuff to make this show better for you guys. If you're out and about this weekend, make sure you take us along with you, whether it be on the audio cast, YouTube, Facebook, all of that kind of good stuff. We're all over the place. Want to give a thanks again to our buddies over at Minnesota Sports Podcast and Under the Lights. They had me on Tuesday night as a guest host. Justin was unavailable, so Dave invited me on to help them out. So we did a show over there with those guys. They've kind of become our extended family over there. So hat tip to those guys, and look forward to working with you guys even more coming forward here. But with that, why don't you take us out of here, Lance?
All right. Come on, Bengals. Come on, Niners. Let's do it again. With that being said, let's look for brighter and better things here in the future for Minnesota Vikings fans, a defensive coordinator, and just in general. So with that being said, again, we will see you guys.
All right.
Skull.
Have a good weekend, everybody.